Hey, what's up, man? How you doing?
Hey, buddy, I'm good. Happy Friday.
I know we made it. We made another week.
Whoop, whoop.
Process That podcast.
Indeed.
Today's is vibe coding
But
and
this is a
how
new one on me. Okay.
it is. It is a new. It's a new thing.
Vibe coding is what the cool kids are doing these days. Is it
Yeah.
like strut your stuff and code magically appears, or how does vibe coding work? I don't know
I
this.
mean, code is all structured, right? So
Okay.
it's
Yeah.
all structured. It's all files. I think the first time I figured out that like a website is literally like your my computer folder.
And the
Like
way,
that's all it is, somewhere on a server with
yeah.
basically instructions for the browser to pick it up. And then it ties to a database on the back end. And there's kind of a bunch of funky magic, but it's literally a file tree. Like that's all it is with a bunch of text files. Like that's what coding is.
So I will say there's a special irony for me in a world where nobody can follow a recipe.
Uh,
We now have servers full of instructions or recipes for how to make
yeah.
the world work that none of us would understand how to follow if we saw it. But
Oh,
love your thought.
totally.
That's super. I think it's true because I've done just enough programming to appreciate it is. It's very linear and logical. So
Yep.
that's coding. What's vibe coding though?
So vibe coding is basically you use an AI to generate some code.
Gotcha. Okay.
Right. It's very good at it. Does a
Yeah.
phenomenal job.
Logic puzzle.
Right.
Sure.
Until it doesn't. And so I've been
Angel Will
which
Robinson. Yeah.
Well, I mean, the reason why I want to talk about this and just in the arena of process debt
Yeah.
is you learn very quickly that computers are ridiculously unforgiving.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Like they are super unforgiving. And these lines of code expect the next line of code. And then the other thing is like the lines of code call into dependency libraries. And so that's the other thing that people don't understand is there's all these dependencies that lives somewhere, and you basically pull in that library onto your server and it downloads that code essentially
Yeah.
to run certain frameworks.
So that you don't have to build every single one of these discrete
Correct.
things. You just borrow
Correct.
rebuilt pieces of Lego.
Correct. And so you
Yep.
basically have a bunch of Lego pieces, and one of your Lego pieces is authentication, and another Lego piece is the framework, like the web framework, which is like React or Angular. Those are the two popular ones.
Cool.
And then you have a backend database, which could be MySQL or SQL Server or a NoSQL database.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing, what I realized after, well, first of all, before I get to what I realized, I will share some funny stories about vibe coding because you set these things up. And then what I didn't realize is it'll give you the entire framework based on the universe of websites that it scrapes, the universe of the framework. So
Sure.
it's got a good idea of what it's trying to do. The first thing you realize is like they're really good at prototyping. Like if you want a quick view, it's super fast. You're like, I want it to look like this. Go and change this, and it's super fast. It's amazing.
Oh,
First thing you realize is like what's presented may not actually be saved on the back end outside of hard coded lines of code on the front end, right?
All right. Because it's not necessarily.
Because you haven't saved it, right? So that leads to the next thing. And think about this as just processes that are very disciplined and have to be, because otherwise the whole world would be hacked all the time. And so then I'm like, okay, well, what do I do next? Right. So it's just this process of, technology and building stuff together, putting the bricks together. And if you think about process debt, like, dude, where that's really from is tech debt, right? Because when people code and they code fast and they don't think about the long term, you end up with these legacy systems that are slow. Anyway,
Right.
so I hook it to a database, right? Then you have to set up keys, right? So everything has to be protected.
Yeah.
And I'm vibing away. I'm asking questions. I'm changing. I'm crushing it until it takes my keys away. I don't know this for hours.
Oh, Lord. Okay.
I'm building my database. I'm writing it. I'm changing the way that it's storing the data on the back end. I can actually see both. It's actually stupidly fun. And
And
then
you're running full out.
I'm running as fast as I can. And then all of a sudden my data's gone. I don't know what happened. I have
Oh.
zero idea.
When face meets asphalt. Yeah.
No, I mean, it
Oh no.
absolutely was, right? And so what I find out at the end is that when I asked to connect it to like Gemini, because I was in the Google ecosystem,
Sure.
it's like, hey, I can fix that. And so in these codes, you have environmental variables that basically allow you to connect to these systems. You have these secret keys that are hashes and
Yeah.
they're encrypted and you've got both sides. What happened is when I tried to connect to the Gen AI, it deleted all those environment variables to my server database. And all of a sudden, I spent 2 hours trying to figure out what's going on, only to come to find out that like it was very liberal
Uh,
in its prototyping, and it completely removed all of my database connections. So then
Vaporware. This is how you
yeah,
make
so then,
vaporware today, and it
yeah, so that,
vaporizes.
so
Oh,
so then I figure it out, and then I start running down, doing the next thing, and then
yeah.
I end up, you end up in these circular references where it's like I did, and they're really nice. The Gen AI, the vibe coding, the AIs are super nice.
Yeah.
But you end up in these loops where it's like, that's a known issue with this thing. The one
Uh,
that I ran into was on Blur. It's like, it's a known issue with the CMDK library. Let me change that for you. And it changes 3 lines, right? So then you're like, that did not work. And then you're like, that's a no. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm just, that is unacceptable. You're like, it is unacceptable. Fix that. So then it's like, it fixes the code, right? It fixes the 3 lines. It basically reverts back to what it had with a different comment. It's like, you literally did not change the code at all. You changed your comment. And so I'm stuck in this never ending loop, not knowing, like, knowing kind of how code works, but not enough to kind of figure it out, which, led to many different like experiences here as I'm just basically pushing my experience. Now it's a great way to learn and be frustrated all at the same time. It's like golf. I mean,
it
it's really,
sounds a lot like golf, but for people that don't like to go outside. Every now and then, you actually get a solid hit, and that just validates you, and then
yeah,
you squander hours
yeah.
looking for one more dude.
Yeah. And then I basically just got it to a point where it was so jacked up, it just won't run. And you're like, what is like, it was so frustrating because I was basically forcing all these changes and all the dependencies are unknown, right? It's doing a new thing, right? Especially when you're asking it to do something different.
Yeah.
Did some really cool stuff and then I just broke it. And then I was like, all right, screw this. So then and this is where it kind of goes into process debt. I was like, I'm just going to kill that whole thing because I just got frustrated. I was like, I know I've got a better idea of what I'm going to do this time because I actually forced the prototype to think through things. And so my mind is a lot clearer. And I'm like, well, I'll start over.
Here's what I love about this vibe coding story. Aside from hearing your pain, and I think at least for my part, it immediately conjures up half a dozen experiences over the years where I think I'm collaborating super effectively, only discover that the other partner in this equation is not at all on the same page. And I think many of us, whether we're the new employee or we're
Yeah.
on a new employee, what they know and then the way things work may not actually mesh, but we don't know it until we're deep enough to discover the code's jammed and, oh, I
Oh,
see your problem that doesn't exist.
yeah.
Let me fix it. And you're still talking past each other. Like, I think that's really at the heart of it.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah.
gosh.
No, it's so funny. So I kick up a new project, right? I'm like, I'm gonna just do this again. And then I pick a different I was using React originally, and then I was like, I should use Angular,
Okay.
which is Google, which is in like Google actually owns that library. I was like, ooh, I'm in Google. I'm gonna go and fix this out. Right. So I set it up. I start rolling and I'm like, I don't even know how this thing works. And then you go to Reddit and they're like, yeah, if you don't know Angular, you shouldn't do this. I was like, dang it. I was like, they're like, yeah, this, it was specifically in the Reddit quote. It was like, if you're just vibe coding, Angular's not your solution. And you're like, oh man,
little asterisk on that for our listeners. And so the next time, vibe coding is the cool new phrase.
Yeah.
And when somebody talks about it, all you have to do is say, if you don't already know Angular, then forget about it.
Yeah. I mean, if you don't know Angular, you should use React and TypeScript. Like, this is what I learned in the whole thing. So when I kill my Angular project, because I'm like, I'm not that guy. Like, I don't have the cycles to put into the Angular library to figure out how the dumb thing works, even though it's tightly coupled and it might be the thing that I want. Okay. Moving on.
God.
Move to phase 3. Right. I have a really clear idea on what I want to do. I get going, I run, then I run into authentication issues. Whole new problem.
Yeah.
Right.
Log in. How does it know it's me?
Correct. And actually, a friend of mine was like, well, why don't you just use, Google's authentication? I was like, brilliant. So then I was able to click the button, because I went down this like random authentication path where the vibe coder was going to go. I was basically like I was like the intern. I was like the IT intern, just trying everything, getting nowhere.
Yeah.
So anyway, I hork it again, because the AI is writing my authentication piece, not knowing. It's terrible. Like, I've spent like 3 or 4 weeks on this, just trying to move the thing forward. I have a really clear idea of what the backend database would look like. I know exactly I'm going to use Google Authentication, which is great. I'm going to use, Firestore. I know all these things, but then you realize very quickly, and this is where this ties back to process debt. Developers have a repository and they have a main branch in production.
Well, and Chris, not all of our listeners know your day job is not software development.
No,
You have a multitude of skills and are expert at a number of things that I would call you about. And you don't introduce yourself as, hi, I'm Chris, the Angular / React developer. And so I think it's so spot on with our theme. And it's that smart people know the names of a lot of smart tools.
Yeah.
Mean that all of our expertise readily translates into a new name. There's a learning curve, right?
Totally.
And so those experts have suffered on their learning curve oftentimes to tell us simple things like, if you don't know Angular, stop now, Viber.
Yes.
And so, but it's true, because how often do we ourselves create process? We're the expert in the room, and even we won't know what we don't know yet.
Yeah.
Until somebody else comes along and says, oh yeah, I tried Angular libraries too, and it didn't work for me because I don't know it. I love this example.
Now I do work with developers though, and I know developers. And so it's actually been kind of interesting, because you again, going back to that main branch. So no matter what software you're using, no matter where it is in the world, you are working on the main branch. That is the pristine. I use that lightly, because if you talk to most developers, they will tell you about how, there is some of their code is pristine. The other is duct tape and baling wire back there hanging out in the corner on some server that they forgot about. And taking this back to process debt.
Yeah.
The way that developers do their things is they take off a bucket of work. They develop that on a local machine. So on their PC, like they test it, prove it out.
Yeah.
Right. Then they deploy that to a branch of the main.
Yep.
Right.
They're not throwing it right back into
They're not throwing it back in. And a lot of people are writing on these branches, and these branches would be, different parts of that process, or different parts of the feature. Yeah. And then eventually you commit your changes to the branch.
Okay.
Then you merge the branch into the main, right? That's how the development process works, right?
Very structured and a lot of safeguards. You break stuff.
Because again, if, intern Chris vibe coding can basically put in a single line and screw up your whole code, it's kind of important to keep it consistent, because it has to follow the rules, right? which really brings me back to the whole process debt, right?
Right.
We don't have anything on the business side that works remotely like that.
Yeah.
We don't even think about our business. We don't even think about knowledge work in that way.
It's true. The closest that I've seen is in pharmaceuticals, because it's such a highly regulated
Yeah,
industry. And their desktop procedures, their standard operating procedures,
sure.
and what they're described as, there's a entire numbering convention and naming conventions that
Yeah,
are
yeah.
industry standard. And so, a couple brief interactions over the years, as a consultant, but I was really impressed with the rigor that goes into it.
Sure.
Of course, those people that like the rigor and like get really bunged up about every last I getting dotted and T crossed
Yeah, yeah.
they're living their best dream, and they only make it worse than it has to be. Right. But that's one of the few places where I've seen, and
Yeah,
in fairness, a lot of some of the state and federal agencies I've worked with do really good version control of edits to
yeah.
their SOPs. But most of us, like I've rarely exercised as much rigor as I need to, knowing that somebody will inherit my work a year,
Yeah.
years, 10 years from now and have to make sense of what I did. I can't even go back to something I created a year ago and
Oh, yeah.
explain, you and I talked about this with spreadsheets. How do I use this thing I dug up? And you're like, good Lord, I don't know.
Yeah.
Let's rebuild it.
Well,
So,
for sure.
well, so I'm super impressed. I guess the real punchline here is that if people have, as you and I do, college age kids, you can vibe out all day, but you better learn some Angular if you want to go that path. That
Yeah. Well,
line there.
yeah, you're going to have to learn something, right? And then the other thing that's interesting, so like going back to the whole code, going back to coding,
Yeah.
is people that code successfully do a lot of little commits, right? Like little consistent commits, and they don't build up that branch, so they're doing so much features, right?
Gotcha.
And yet on the takeaway here is that we could learn a lot from our developers because they're forced into that rigor.
Yeah.
Whereas, in knowledge work, oftentimes we're going to go and do the whole thing all at once, and you're just going to have to live with it. But no one's ever tested it. It didn't start there wasn't a local test that then got a bigger test that then was proved, right? Because what happens is these guys, they'll write their codes, they'll commit it. They actually have they have what's called a unit test that basically goes in and checks every single function that says, if this is true, you feed in some variables and make sure that gives you the right answer. If it's false, right? So they have these little tests that you can check along the way. And so the moral of the story is that for knowledge workers, it's very important to implement in small increments if you want stuff to be consistent and
Chris, I
even
love it.
usable.
You and I've laughed about how most organizations have adopted the wrong parts of Agile and disciplines from the development world. Here's yet another example of everybody's bastardized the daily stand up. Like, let's get around and just jaw in the morning because it feels good.
Yeah.
And now, here's what we could learn about the development process, which is make changes small, validate them often. And that's exactly not how we do process engineering work generally.
Yeah. Could you imagine if one little PowerPoint change broke the entire company?
My God.
Like if you're a software company, right? Like this is
It's true. It's well, in fairness though, it's true for like a sales deck. If you're missing zero off of your price and you pitch your customers $129,000 and you're missing a trailing zero, you just gave up, 900 grand. It's just that we don't hear about that because that doesn't show up on thousands of users' dashboards every day.
Which is it's just like all the people that you've talked to about going to Vegas will tell you about their wins.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Oh,
I don't know how they're keeping the lights on down there.
No, I don't think the $15 I leave every decade is really keeping the light. So maybe there's somebody else.
Maybe someone else is dropping some coin.
All right, man. Always the best 5 minutes of every week. Thank you, listeners, for staying with us and not paying attention to your watch. So,
all right. Talk to you next week.
Vibe on, my
Yeah,
friend.
man.
See
All
ya.
right.
Bye.